next speaker is Dan Butterman.
Okay, my name is Dan Butterman, and as Dr. O'Donnell said at the beginning, last August I attended the Climate Reality Project Leadership Core training in Los Angeles. The information I bring to you tonight comes from that conference, and it's the organization that was founded by Al Gore following the movie that he made in 2006, The Inconvenient Truth. And the organization was intended to provide facts and information for people around the world to spread information about the effects of climate change right now, things going on in the area of renewable energy going forward, and what we can do, hopefully this day, going forward to improve our circumstances. That was in 2006. And since then, they have trained almost 20,000 individuals across the world with this information and how to make these presentations in their communities to hopefully to affect positive change. And so that's me in Los Angeles, you can tell. And there's Al. This was the largest training that they had done to date, so I didn't get to say hi, but that's as close as I got. So the information I'm going to share with you tonight comes from that. They provide you all the information that they have through their organization, and then it's up to you to try to tailor it in a meaningful way for your community. So what that means is they give you a ton of information. This slideshow I'm going to show you tonight started off at about 530 slides, so we're not going to do all those. I'll try to give you the information that I think is pertinent to our discussion tonight and discussions hopefully we'll be having going forward. It'll start in 3 parts. And these are the questions that you may have seen if you watched one of Al Gore's TED Talks, most recently from 2016 at the TED conference. And he talked about, in essence, an update from his last talk in 2006, which corresponded with his movie. So what's happened in the 10 years since then? So some of the slides, if you've seen that TED Talk, you'll see tonight, plus a few more. The questions that he wants to answer are 3 questions. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? And those are some questions I'm going to go through tonight. Oh, and when you're in Los Angeles, of course, the Getty Museum has a good vantage point. You look up and you look at the atmosphere and you think, where does it end? And we don't really know until we start looking at it from another perspective. And that's what started to happen in the 60s with the Apollo missions. And these videos, the videos and photographs that were taken from space, and it gave us a new perspective of the world that we were living in. And that is the atmosphere. And as we look at it, it looks like from the ground up, it looks expansive, never-ending. But when you look at it from space, you can see it's quite a thin layer surrounding our planet. And you think about what that means when you're on it. So these are the basics. The sun heats the earth. Comes in, the atmosphere catches it, most of it gets reflected, about half of it stays in the atmosphere, and it heats and warms our planet. So then the question of global warming comes when too much sticks around. And that's the problem with the atmosphere. When the carbon dioxide is in it, it traps more of that radiation that is often reflected back out into space. It stays here, causes an increase in temperature. Those are the basics. We've covered those. This is from the Apollo 8 mission, orbiting the moon, taking a look back at our Earth, and you can see that we're really not as expansive as you might think looking at the ground going up. But when you look at it from space, we're just, in the expanse of space, quite small. And this is from 1968, and some might view this as the launch of the modern environmental movement. We can start to see the blue marble and what we should do to take care of our planet. Earth Day happened, I think, 18 months after that. So here are the typical contributors to greenhouse gases, some of which you already know. So the question is, must we change? And this is a look at what has happened in the last 150 years or so since we've started using fossil fuels. Okay, so the largest source of global warming pollution is burning fossil fuels. And so if you can't see the dates on there, the graph starts at 1850 and ends in 2016. So you can see near the exponential growth in the 1920s, 1950s, going up until now. So what that means is for measurements is that CO2 is being released into the atmosphere more so than 66 million years. Now, here's some graph. What does that mean as far as temperature change? This is taken from 1950 to 1980. Sort of, when you look at statistics, bell curves are nice. So you look at the colder days, blue, average days, white, red, are the warmer than average. So that's 1951 to 1980. Well, let's see some adjustments. 1983 to 1993, 10-year adjustment. You see the graph is starting to shift right. And now you're starting to see an inclusion, a dark red, on those are the extreme hot days. And then 1994 to 2004, it's shifting more and more right. Less frequent are the colder than average days, and more frequent are the extreme hot days. Now we're at 2005 to 2015, even more to the right. Now, those extreme hot days comprise 14.5%. 17 of the 18 hottest years on record, as recorded, came since 2001. Small exception there in 1998. So again, 17 of the 18 hottest were from 2001. Now you add in 1998, you can see what happened in the last 20 years. As you can probably tell, this moves very quickly. Last 4 years, hottest. Now, going back to those graphs, see that average shifting? It's because in the last 50 years, as you can see there, 2017 was the 41st consecutive year with a global temperature above the 20th century average. It's shifting right. Here's some statistics as far as weather that we have experienced recently. If you're in Europe, lucky you, 2017 though, maybe not so much in August, an extreme heat wave of 111 degrees. Now where does the heat go? Most of it is trapped in the oceans, 93% of it. That will lead into the next part as far as what that means as far as climate change. More graphs on the temperature change, the heating up of the oceans, and what that will mean for storm development and droughts. The story is clear, it's going up. So if you can't read, I'll read some of it for you. Half of the increase has occurred in the last 20 years of ocean increase. Now, going to recent memory, Hurricane Harvey that hit in 2017. Here's a graphic of how it developed. Now, when it was traveling over the Gulf of Mexico, it's important to note the temperature of the oceans as it intensified. So, Category 4 intensified into a Category 4 in just a few days. Rapid intensification of the storms. This is interesting when Dr. O'Donnell introduced me as far as insurance goes and costs related to these things. Look at that, 1 in 25,000 year event. That was Harvey. Most of the rainfall was about 30 inches, 30 to 36 inches. Some places had over 60 inches, which means that was a 1 in 500,000 year event. Okay, so is that going to happen again in 500,000 years? No, sorry, it's not. It's going to keep happening. Here's just some quick bullet points. I'm going to skip through it quite quickly. Warmer oceans lead to more intense hurricanes. Hurricanes intensify faster, higher winds, more water, hold the moisture, heavier downpours, storm surges, and we'll skip 5. Maria, Hurricane Maria, intensified from a Category 1 to 5 in less than a day. And Hurricane Sandy from almost more than 6 years ago. Downtown Manhattan, the downpour of the rain. So, risk of Hurricane Sandy. So you think, was that a once-in-a-lifetime event or once in a 500-year event? I'm sorry, the answer will be no. 1 in 500 years. So 1 in 25 years was 2017. What's going to happen in 2030 to 2045? It's going to go up even more. Maybe 1 in every 5 years based on the statistics we see happening now. This is the cycle of how storms, evaporation, precipitation, downfall goes around. So let's look at some examples of where you can see it. Actual pictures, sort of like seeing the blue marble. Here is Montana from 2010. Severe downpour. Here's Kansas just this last year in June. Phoenix, Arizona. Who would have thought a storm like that would hit Phoenix, Arizona? 2016. And the home of my alma mater, 2015. Here's Tucson. Take a look. Just a quick moment. The amount of downpour that comes in just a short amount of time, it's almost like it splashes, like pouring a bucket over flat ground. That's 2015. Sorry, that's a hard word. Precipitation anomalies. They're increasing. As you can see, most of these graphs right now are going to be going on the right end of things. So 1 in 16, 1 in 1,000 year events since 2010. Houston was hit by 8 major floods since 15 to 18. Now here's the costs associated with it. This is just 2017, $320 billion does not account for anything that's happened since then. Now, these are the cities that are at risk for sea level rise. This graph is by population. It might be hard to see there. Taking home, Miami is on that list, but this is by population on the right. Now, this is by assets at risk, the buildings and structures that we have in place. What is at risk for sea level rise by 2070? Miami is at top of the list. Close to home, New York is third. Significant risk going forward. Now, when you think about downpour, that's on one part of the planet. In other parts of the planet, there'll be severe droughts. Many of you probably remember the news from last year about Cape Town almost out of water. This is from 2018, almost about a year ago. Severe drought, Cape Town almost out of water. Now, on the other side of the country, forest fires. I'm from Arizona. It's sort of part of life there. Every summer you see forest fires. Hopefully you don't see them too close, but they are part of life. What has changed, though? Here's New Mexico forest fire, burned 50,000 acres in Colorado from just April this year. This is the important part that I want to get to. The fire season of the past is gone. Now it's been extended by more than 3 months. Don't have the numbers, but start thinking about the strain that would put on governments and institutions in those areas tasked with fighting and preventing those fires. You have to do more than raking. No surprise here, the numbers. As the temperature is up, the severity of the fire also goes up. Southwest is in a significant drought. Here is Folsom Lake, California from 2011. 3 years later. Worst drought in 600 years. Hottest year on record was 2017, fighting those fires. That does not count anything that's happened in 2018. You can imagine that price is going up. Now, when that happens, the droughts and the severe storms across the world, there's obviously going to be a price change in food. See some spikes there in 2010. 2 record food price spikes within 3 years. And then think of where this is happening in Syria from 2006. A drought from 4 years where 60% of the fertile land in Syria went blank. And more statistics behind that as far as the livestock that was lost and what that did for people looking for refuge. 1.5 million people moving because of lack of the ability to farm and to sustain themselves where they currently were. This could be a trend going forward in other places, the migration looking for food and other resources. Even the Syrian government is predicting more of that. Give you a moment to read, and we'll move. This is the fun part, I hope. Must be changed? Yes. The evidence, in my mind, is clear. What's happening can be turned around, but can we do it? So let's see, hopefully, some good news now about what is happening around us and what could possibly happen right here in Oneonta and in Otsego County. So, coal use for electric generation, you can see that is declining. This goes from 2006 to 2016. Again, this is sort of the update in what's happened in the last 10 years since that movie. Now, 2020, that's not too far away. U.S. is expected to retire an additional 20 gigawatts of coal-fired generating capacity. What are we going to do with it? Same time, we're going to increase 115 gigawatts of solar and wind. So what is the potential with solar and wind as far as generating our energy needs? It's quite substantial. Global wind energy capacity, this is our ability to capture it, is increasing just as exponentially as we hope it would. From 1995 to 2015, that's when it starts to rise rapidly. It's going to continue. Why is this important? Because the wind energy can supply our energy needs 40 times over. 40. Solar, similar situation. 2002 projection, the solar energy market would grow 1 gigawatt per year by 2010. So what happened? 8 years later, let's see what the numbers say. Reality is, the goal was exceeded by 17 times. Good news. It might get a little bit better. 2017, it was exceeded by 98 times. Why is that? Well, there's this installations going up, cost of it. Cost is going down dramatically. From 1976, was the far left, to right now, the cost in 1976 was $79 a watt. 2018, 28 cents. Dramatic reduction. Here in California, this is from May of this year, the price of solar has declined by 53% in the last 5 years alone. There's the capacity increases. California first in the nation as far as solar projects. Why is that important? 17% of California's electricity is generated by solar and has the potential for 36 times more than what they need can be generated by solar. Well, that's a good number. Solar energy, every hour that reaches our planet can fuel a whole year's worth of our energy needs. Capture potential is quite significant. Here's in California, by 2020, this is regulation. All new homes in California will be required to integrate solar energy and efficiencies in their homes. Other countries are increasing their use of renewables. Germany reached a peak. With renewable energy, wind and solar, it goes up and down as far as sunny days, windy days. So in April of 17, they had a peak. Germany, 85% of their energy was fueled by renewable energy. Now, the Deutsche Bank, grid parity. This is where you're talking about the cost of fossil fuels versus renewables and how eventually they may meet each other and change. So what does that look like? So grid parity, the idea of once it's one thing, take it one step further, it's something else. Water is at 33, that's water. A little picture might help with that. What does ice look like? At 32 degrees, that's ice. That's the subtle difference in numbers, but it's very significant when you look at it. The cost of clean energy going down dramatically. Here's residential, utility, wind, batteries, LED light bulbs. These are the cost of producing them going down dramatically from 2008 to 2017. That's that graph. Capacity in the U.S. has been solar, wind, natural gas, and other renewables. This is a fun slide. The Kentucky Museum on mining. How are they getting their energy? It's a practical decision. Saves them $8,000 to $10,000 a year. Is there any precedent for such a rapid adoption of solar? Yes, there is. But maybe they were wrong when they talked about the possibility. So in 1980, AT&T put out a commission study to find out what's the potential market penetration of cell phones. So by 2000, they projected 900,000 users. So do you think they were right or wrong? Wrong. The big question is, how wrong were they? Whoa, 109 million users in 2000. So I think when you do the math, they did the 900,000 in the first 3 days of 2000. So they were wrong, not by a little, but by a lot. So why were they so far off? Way wrong. Well, who would have thought cell phones would be so cool? Here it is. It's a pretty simple, straightforward answer. Why was there such a rapid adoption of cell phones? Well, the cost went down. At the same time, the quality went up. So you look at this at a global perspective, not necessarily in your own backyard, but think around the world what the developing countries were doing versus the already developed countries. The developing countries essentially leapfrogged this technology and did not go with landlines and went with the cell phone. So here's the adoption, developed countries in blue. Green lines were the developing countries. So you can see a pretty steady line there. Rapid adoption started in 2004. So in just 14 years, huge rate of adoption on the cell phones. Now, here is energy storage. 2011 to 2016, it's also increasing. This is important because of the need to store some energy when you generate it. Also growing at a very high rate. Now, this is projected through 2030. We are right in the middle there, about at 2019. Projected ability by gigawatts by 2030, 125 gigawatts. Ion batteries, lithium-ion batteries, rapid reduction. 2014 to 16 alone saw a 50% reduction in cost. So in 2 years, to go down by 50% in cost of doing it, that means you have a more rapid implementation and use of the technology. So where are they using it? Here's in Australia, the largest lithium-ion battery wind farm in Australia to help with some of the intermittency issues and also to be a gap when there's power outages, which they experience frequently. Here is in Ontario, California, 2017, the largest energy storage market in the U.S. And here are electric cars on the road, 2010 to 17, rapid introduction of those. So as the car battery costs go down, use of them increases. There's a slide, I excluded it, but that's essentially what that says. There's the sales of electric vehicles in California. Who's number 2 behind California? New York. So we're right behind. We're close. Here's other countries looking to phase out fossil fuel cars. We're not on the list. And here's auto manufacturers seeing the trend, seeing that what's good for their business is to phase out fossil fuels and go to electric models. Now, these could be hybrids or plug-ins, but either way, it's electric. Ooh, General Motors, the future is electric. They see the trend. They're going to get on it. Volvo, as of this year, all cars will be electric or hybrid. Buses, talk about community transportation, schools, or in city buses. That implementation by 2025 is going to be, it's by the thousands, 1,200. Rapid introduction of there because the cost is there. Over the lifetime of the bus, they last longer, almost twice as long, and the operating costs are significantly less than regular engine buses. So in a sense, what I'm arguing here is that it's not only good, but it's good for your bank account as well. Jobs. Where are the jobs going? The fastest growing sectors are in renewable energies, 9 times faster than the overall economy. Solar installer is the fastest growing job, followed right behind by wind technicians. Energy jobs, now this is looking at California, and we want to talk a little bit about the economics in New York, so let's look at a comparison of California. Solar jobs, that's the big one, 150,000. Energy efficiency jobs, making better use of your energy. Now here is where there's employee growth, 2-year return on shares, and R&D share of sales. I want to take a moment on this one as far as what California is doing in the renewable sector versus other sectors. So what it's saying is better employee growth, better return on your shares if you're a shareholder, and R&D. This is important, in my view. When you're looking at what a company is doing to invest in its future, R&D is kind of an indicator of that. And if they're investing more in that area, they might see more opportunity going forward by getting more products and services to market. So they're outpacing the other companies by double. Building efficiency market, this is also a growing sector, increasing over the last 7 years. LED lights, percentage of total lighting in the market, also increasing rapidly. Now we get to some points on political views. The 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. This is important. We're not legally withdrawing until the 2020 because of ratification. They approved it in 2015, but it wasn't ratified until a year later by the number of countries that ratified it on their own. Getting to a certain amount of participation, then it's ratified. Once it's ratified, you have 3 years. So by that ratification date, this comes, I think, a day or two after the presidential election in 2020. Makes it a solid presidential campaign issue. But I also think it should be a local and state issue for campaigns as well. So notwithstanding the president's decision to leave the Paris Climate Agreement, other areas are saying we can meet those goals embedded in that agreement. So who's doing it? Well, last year Hawaii said we will meet our goals. That was state policy. Now looking back on it, this is back to the beginning. When we say what can we do, the we in there is the people part of it. The individuals at my home or at yours or at your businesses or in your institutions, what is it that you can do taking this technology, this information, and applying it in a meaningful way to meet your energy needs going forward for the next generation? The jobs are there. The technology is there. It's there. But what is stopping it? Maybe it's us. So I'd like to leave you with a quote. I'm not going to say it yet. It's from Wallace Stevens. And it's from his poem titled A Well-Dressed Man with a Beard. After the final no, there comes a yes. And on that yes, the future world depends. The yes is up to us. Thank you.